Hi everyone. So the book I chose this week for our historical fiction picture book is Marching with Aunt Susan, Susan B. Anthony, and the Fight for Women's Suffrage. And it is written by Claire Rudolph Murphy and illustrated by Stacy Shute. So in the historical fiction lecture, we learned that there are 4 different types of historical fiction. And the type of historical fiction that this book is a fictionalized memoir where the author lives during the time period of the story. So this book is based on the experiences of a real 10-year-old girl named Bessie who lived in California during the women's suffrage campaign. And the story is actually inspired by her diary. So in the historical fiction lecture, we talked about narrative perspectives. So who is telling the story? Is it an older person that has more power, or is it told by a younger person who maybe doesn't have as much power? In the case of this book, it is told by Bessie, the 10-year-old girl, and at the beginning of the story, she doesn't have a lot of power, but throughout the book and then by the end of the book, she actually has a lot of power because she helped in the fight of the women's rights. So in the story, Bessie wants to go hiking with her brothers and her father. But unfortunately, it is 1896 and girls are not allowed to do things like that. So when Susan B. Anthony comes to her town to lead a women's suffrage campaign, Bessie learns that women aren't allowed to vote either. So Bessie joins the women's suffrage movement and finds that even small changes or efforts can lead to big changes. So another historical fiction feature that was mentioned in the lecture was demand versus offer. And demand and offer are character relationships. So demand would be that if the characters in the book make direct eye contact with the readers. And offer means that the characters do not make any eye contact with the readers. So in this case, none of the characters in this book ever make direct eye contact with the readers. So that kind of tells me that they aren't asking the reader for help, but instead they want you just to watch it from an outside perspective. Another historical fiction feature that was talked about in the lecture is framing, and that is a white space around the illustrations. As we can see in this book, there are no white spaces around the illustrations. And actually, the illustrations are really colorful and vivid, and they're really big, so it allows the readers to really be a part of the story instead of distancing themselves from the story. Another historical fiction feature that was talked about in the lecture is motifs. In this story, we can see that Bessie is always wearing a blue dress, and it's all the way up to her neck. It covers all of her skin on her arms, and it goes all the way down to her ankles. So I think that just shows the sign of the time, since it was 1896. And then when it comes to Susan B. Anthony, she's always wearing this red shawl over her dress. She has glasses, and her hair is always pulled back in a low bun. And if we look at actual pictures of Susan B. Anthony, we know that that's what she actually always really wore. She wore the glasses, and her hair was always pulled back in a bun with the black dress. And then finally, another historical fiction feature that was mentioned in the lecture is placement of characters. So the words used to identify the placement of characters is ideal and real. And ideal characters are placed at the top of the page, or they're bigger, and it kind of makes them show ownership of the story. And then real characters are placed at the kind of the bottom of the pages, and it kind of shows helplessness or powerlessness. So in this case, Bessie is always the forefront of all of the illustrations. So I kind of think that shows us that she really has ownership and really knows who she is as a person, and she really wants to take hold of the story. She's the main character. But then in one part, it shows Bessie in the back here. And this is because she's kind of helplessness in this part of the story. She's feeling really sad. So I think that's why the illustrator decided to put her back there on that one. And then at the back of the book as well, there is a description of actually Bessie Keith Pond, who is the real Bessie in real life. So, yeah.